everybody, and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and Disembodied Hands, Quindy, Justin, and John. How is everyone today? Hello, Cornico, thank you! Wow, that is almost 50 miniatures worth. 29 months, dang. I've switched chairs, Nomad Zeke, for my stream on Saturday. I switched chairs and it helped a lot, so I am switching chairs. So note to self, like kneeling chairs are all like cool and all, but they're really made for you to engage your core, right? To kind of exercise your core if your core is weak. And I think that because I already have a little bit of going on with my back, that's actually not a great idea. So I'm in a much more neutral chair now, and it seems to work. Where I can keep like proper posture and not like kneeling chairs kind of try to force you to keep proper posture, but they're also slanted. And I think the slant is like not so great. Not so great. Just my personal experience. And I did use the kneeling chair for a long time and I liked it, but I don't know. Just listening to, when you hurt, you have to listen to yourself. Or you should. We are indeed rolling in, and we have a bust today. We do have a bust, and I can take her little number out of there. So we're doing her with a very tanned skin tone. We're going to keep working on that today. I have my happy little card telling us what mixes we were using. We were using my new favorite color, Griffin Golden Brown. I love discovering new favorite colors, don't you? Critico, yeah. I think it's that, like, my core is actually, I've been doing, like, yoga and stuff now for, like, over a year, and I think my core is okay, and I think that the kneeling chair almost puts a little more stress on it. I don't know, it's just weird. I find it much more comfortable to just be in a normal chair. So I may just have to adapt. All these silly chair shenanigans can just go right out, and we're just gonna have just a straight back chair. Be Anne's favorite chair. Otherwise, I mean, I used to like them, but yeah, they're not working for me today. How about that? You can try whatever weird chair you would like. But yes, the cats need a lap if you have lap cats. My cat was not a lap cat. Panther was Mama-san's son. He was not a lap cat. He liked to be next to you, but he did not like to be on you. All right, so we started with a mixture of tanned skin and Griffin Golden Brown. This is a beautiful kind of tan color, as you can see, so it gave us this lovely color that we've got here, although we did add some other stuff in to get like our shadow color and, our kind of our rosier color. We were working with heraldic red, I believe, not violet red, Anne. Heraldic red, not blood red. It appears that my heraldic red decided to dance around in my my paint drawer. That's funny, Nemedzik. They are demanding critters. They really are. All right, and I need my tan skin. So yeah, we're going to see how I do here today, and we're going to hopefully have a nice long stream. That is the hope. So our starting mix is, of course, the color I always tell you is the most versatile skin tone that Master Series makes. Hold on, we're crooked. I don't like being crooked. I don't want to be crooked. All right. So the most versatile skin tone in all of Master Series is tan skin. You can mix so many different things with it to make so many different other things. So you should always do so when you feel like making a new skin tone. Whip out this sucker and add other colors to it. It works. I'm going to go with a big puddle of this. I just need some more shaking. I can see just a little bit. When you can see just a little bit of wateriness in your paint, make sure you reshake it. Painting sofa. Yeah. But maybe you can rig something like some sort of raised lap desk. All right, so I'm going to actually put 4 drops of this sucker down. 8 drops. So now I need 4 drops of Griffin Golden Brown. I'm just making a giant puddle of our main color for the skin because that gives us a lot. Since you all know I like to grab a couple of brushfuls of this and move it over here and then add another color. So I want to have enough of my base color that I don't want to have to remix it every time I turn around. So this is 8 drops of tan skin. And then we will make a donut. I have a lot of glare there. There we go. There we go. I have a slightly different light position today to try to just experiment a little bit. So we'll see how it goes. If I get too much glare, I will change it again. I do tend to... There. Let's try that. The challenge in making a good miniature painting setup for streaming is that you must get the light on the figure, but you also have to worry about the shadow from your camera. So you kind of have to mess around and get the best of the possible worlds, I think. There we go. Yeah, there's got to be, like, it would be cool if people made a hobby desk for like a couch or something, like where it was at the right level. Because you've got, you know, I've got a little padded, you know, table that goes on my legs, a lap desk. But we need a raised lap desk. You'd think someone would have made this. I'm going to put 4 drops. So it's going to be at about a 3-to-1. There's 12 drops of paint in here. I'm going to put 4 drops of water mix in. And now I want to Google raised lap desk. You'd have to have balancers on either side of it, like arches, like Notre Dame. All right, so that may be a little thin for my base, but I'm going to be adding other colors to it. So we were adding in oxide red, I see. Did I do oxide red or did I do oxide brown? Yeah, I did oxide red. Now I need to figure out where I put it. Ruddy brown. The problem with having so many colors in my drawer is it becomes very difficult to find any given color. Yeah, I was going to say, like, adjustable height TV dinner trays. That was what I was thinking, Nomad Zeke. So 2 big brushfuls of this. And 1 drop of oxide red. Because we were giving her a little bit more of a reddish tone to her skin. Yeah, that's what we were working on. Perfect. And because I have my swatches here on the card, by the way, the sneaky thing to do is to actually take a little bit of what you just mixed and kind of put it right at the edge to see if you have the color right. Because if you just like put a little dab of it next to your main swatch, you'll be able to directly compare once it dries. And then you know that you've mixed it appropriately or it's close enough. This is still drying, so I'm going to put it to the side. But that is the other use of the swatch, not just to give you kind of a visual reference, but to actually give you a direct reference if you're doing a lot of mixing. Do be aware that if you put a little extra, like if it's a little bit of a heavier dab, the color is going to look a little different. You know, you kind of have to use your best judgment because when you're painting on card, it's absorbent and the amount of paint that you put in there, depending on how much it's thinned, is going to look a little different. So you're mostly looking for a ballpark here. Whoa, the sun came out. It has been dreary and rainy for a whole day now. Oh, nice. Adjustable height TV dinner trays. Now we all have to run out and look at that. If I ever have to go through surgery again, because I would have killed for that. Like after surgery, when I was stuck in bed and I had to stay in bed while I healed up, like I would have killed for that to be able to paint in bed if I put down like some plastic and stuff to protect the bed. That would have rocked. Yeah, this color is actually really close to what I originally started with, so I'm going to keep it, and then I'm going to mix a little bit of our blush color, because I didn't have much time to utilize the blush color we mixed up. So we did have a 4-to-2 with Heraldic Reds, so pretty much a 2-to-1. So again, I'm going to grab 2 big blobs of my starting mix, and now hopefully you see why I made so much of my starting mix. We did this a bit on my stream on Saturday, which is twitch.tv/paintingbig. But I know many of you probably don't have the time to go over and look at that, but I was kind of demonstrating this with actually traditional artist paint colors. We were putting together a very organic skin tone glaze to go over my grisaille that I did on my forest demon bust. Because you can do this stuff and you can just glaze it. I mean, you don't have to actually be using the paint opaquely. It'll give you a slightly different effect to put it over like a zenith or a grisaille. Thank you for the shout out, Quindy. Yes, yes. I'm not sure if we're going to have a stream this coming Saturday. I will figure it out. It depends how much I get done this week, because time's tight this month because we're losing a lot of the end of it to family visiting. David's parents arrive on the 21st, which means I have to have all my Patreon stuff done like 10 days early. So this means I may have to sacrifice this weekend. We'll see how it goes. Darn pesky families. All right, and then I want my shadow color. So this is where this card is really useful because, you know, if I hadn't made these notes, I would have no clue. Like, I would remember that I mixed, like, Griffin Golden Brown with tan skin, but other than that, I wouldn't have remembered. I would have probably had to kind of, you know, figure it out by trial and error, and instead, the card makes it very easy to just remix what I need. And this is a drop of russet brown, so... which is generally a good shadow color. Uh-oh. Yeah, it did not mix correctly. It's a good thing I noticed it before I applied it. Although I did make a gloob on my gray paper. But you know what? This is why I have an entire pad of gray paper. So that even if we mar its beautiful, pristine surface, we can fix that. In fact, I can slide it just out of frame and we'll be fine. There. Haha. We're back. You totally can't tell that I made a mess. Mostly. There. All right. Hello, Coobs. All right, now that I've shaken up my russet brown adequately, I can add a drop. Bloop. So this is fun because we're using colors we normally don't use in these, right? We're using some oxide red. We're using the Griffin Golden Brown. We're using heraldic red to mix the blush color. We're generally playing around. And one thing I wanted to do also is to grab a little bit of blue liner. Or maybe, maybe I'll do Ritterlick. I wanted to get a shadow on this side of her face that's a little bit colder, so I'm going to actually mix some blue into my russet brown mix. And I'm going to try to go really tiny with that. Sometimes when you're using complementary colors to cool down a shadow, you want to really just use a tiny bit just squeezed onto your brush. You don't even want a full drop. Hello, Val. 17 months. Thank you for the resub. There we go. I'm going to just grab a little tiny bit. And I mean tiny. I'm not even going to put this full drop in. I'll show you guys. See that tiny little speck? I'm not even going to use it all. I'm just going to pick up a tiny bit on my brush. Because I know it's going to really green this out. And I'm probably going to need to grab more. Oh, now it has the sun out and it's raining. Our poor weather is so confused here. But at least we're getting rain, which, since we had a lot of drought, there we go. That's kind of what we're looking for. So when you're using complementary colors, let's get our big black base. When you're using a complementary color to cool down a shadow, in this case, browns, remember, are muted oranges, and the complement of orange is blue. So I grabbed, essentially, Prussian blue. That's what Ritterlick really is. And added it. And you see how it's kind of just graded out. That's what you want to do. You shouldn't actually see it go green or too blue, but you want the brown to just kind of mute out a little bit. And that will give you a kind of a cooler shadow that'll still should go with everything else that you've got on your plate. In fact, I'm going to kind of mix it into this. Yeah, well, we're definitely getting, finally, some good rain here. Like I said, it's supposed to actually rain all day today. Like, we've got this break in the clouds. I kind of hope it lasts until it's time for my walk. Yeah, then later today it's supposed to go all rainy again. I love it because this new house, like, is not, like, it's old and I can totally hear the rain on the roof really clearly, and I love that. I love being able to hear the rain. Oh, guys, we got a Christmas tree this weekend. We have an actual tree. And it's even got lights on it, and it even has presents under it. Because I wrapped David's parents' presents. Got a bunch of our Christmas shopping. Pretty much all of our Christmas shopping done yesterday through focused effort. Given my family is easy. Alrighty, so now we've got this. I'm going to use this darker, muted, cooler, bluer color to shade in under the eye sockets here, like under the brow ridge here. You're surrounded by actual trees. We have different trees. I mean, we have a lemon tree. It's hard to make a lemon tree feel Christmassy. Especially when it's obviously very sad right now because of the cold. All right, so pretty much let's get this out of frame so that we can see. Let's zoom in. Let's focus. 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 So there's that shadow. You can see that I painted it in here. And I did paint it into the crease here and just under the brow here. I did leave a little bit of light here. If you look at faces out like around, like unless somebody's got really deep eye sockets, which some people do, you'll normally see a little bit of light here though. Like, because this is a poofy little area right here under the brow that kind of comes out toward the edge. So you can keep that a little bit lighter if you want. If you don't keep it lighter, it will look like the person has very deep eye sockets, which usually is not a great look for women. So if you're painting females, you want to keep that in mind. There's a reason why if you look at women who are made up heavily, like models on magazine covers and stuff, you will see that they apply makeup where it's darker toward the interior and then it lightens out here, not only on the eyelid itself, but especially up here. And that's because they're trying to minimize that shadow and open up the eye so that it accentuates the eye a little bit more, makes it more visible. There's a lot of visual things to it, but essentially they don't want to get too dark. So I'm going to get this shadow right down into that crease here. And see how that accentuates her eyes a lot to give it that shadow. But now we need to bring back the eyelid. Oh, actual Christmas trees. That's funny. Our tree's really nice, actually. I was not being too picky. We have exactly one ornament, though. And of course, it's a shepherd dog. Because David had not previously had a tree, so he had no ornaments. So his parents have, of course, as people's parents are wont to do, and families in general, have a lot of extra ornaments that they just don't use every year. So they're going to bring us some ornaments when they come down. So we'll then have more ornaments than just my my shepherd dog with a stocking hanging out of its mouth. I actually ordered a second shepherd dog ornament because I was thinking I would paint it up like Kiri. I'm going to paint one of them like Kiri. I just don't know which one yet. They're like resin cast, heavy kind of resin cast ornaments. It's hard to find good ones. All right, I want to make this a little darker here. I want to make sure I've got this a nice kind of a uniform. You can see this side of her face is lighter and this side of the face is darker, and that's because of the hat, of course, which I've currently removed so that we can actually get at her features a little bit better, which is why she's got sticky tack on top of her head. Oh, that's cool, Shadow Raven. At least you removed a tree that needed to be removed. Kardashians wish they looked that good. Oh, Scam Kerniko, it's fun. That's awesome. Yeah, with fostering cats, you gave up. Yep, yeah, I could see that. I may actually need to mix more of our starting tone, guys, because it's really gotten low. It's gotten quite low. Might need, actually, let's just do that before. Otherwise, if I run out in the middle of something, I'm going to be so annoyed. So again, 2 drops of Tan Skin 9044, the super versatile, awesome skin tone. 1, 2, there. And remember, when you're dropping your paint into the palette, don't do like this. Put your bottle on the side. If you do it very vertical, there's a higher chance that that agitator is going to drop right down and clog your aperture, and your paint won't come out. So if you have issues, first turn it up right side up and kind of squeeze your bottle and see if you can hear the air whistling in and out. And if you can, put it on its side and squeeze it to get the paint onto your pellet. Little life hack there. Tiny life hack. There we go. Just want to make sure I've got enough of that base color so that I can mix everything I need. Because pretty soon we're going to start working with highlights, and want to make sure we are in good position to do so. All right, so we've also got our blush color, and I want to add in our blush. We used this color on the lips last time, although I actually have a bit of this is a little bit darker. I think I might have added in a little white last time. So actually I'm going to come in and kind of put this on the upper lip. The upper lip should always be in shadow, remember? Both in small miniatures and in bigatures. But that doesn't mean you don't see any color. And if you look at yourself in the mirror, you can see that your upper lip is in shadow, but you also can see the color to it. So I'm going to kind of use this darker pink to line the outside of the lip. I guess this is a very Kardashian skin tone, isn't it? It's a very tanned. Alrighty, so we've got the lip kind of outlined. That may have been a little bit too much, but well, I don't know. I'm okay with it. I may darken it down, actually. If I want to highlight this sucker, then I probably should just darken it. So let's just darken it down. Now, the more you get away from the skin tone, the more unnatural. See, now it looks more like lipstick. So what that is we added maybe a little bit too much red to our base tone. And so now it's looking a little bit more artificial. But that's all right. We're going to come in and highlight it. And if we want it to go more natural, what we'll do is not just mix white into this color, but we'll mix a little bit more skin tone in. That'll pull it back toward the skin tone that she has, and that will make it look more natural. Essentially, the closer it gets, the more in common it has with your skin tone, the more natural your lip color will look. Yeah, as we have no animals at all this year, we are able to have a tree. I'm going to bring in blush here, a little bit of red color. I thinned it down so I can make it a little bit more subtle. You want a rosiness to the cheeks. The rosiness does not actually extend up onto this area, make a note. Unless you're one of those people who blushes all the way to your eyes, which is actually, you know, it's out there, but it's not like super usual. But usually red color will not hit the top of the cheekbone. And the reason for that is that the bone is right here. Unless you have like extra fleshiness on your face, but usually, especially with people with very prominent cheekbones, as she has, the bone, you can feel the bone right under. And so that's why you don't get this red color up here, is that whenever there's bone close to the surface, even if there's copious blood flow as there is on our foreheads, there's still so much, the bone shows through the skin, and that's why you get that more of a golden effect and less of a pink effect. Now you do get pink, however, around the nostrils, and what they call it is temperature bands on the face. This is the technical term in art. So you usually have a warm golden up top, forehead, remember, near the bone, so more golden. This is a general rule, but it tends to hold even for like dark-skinned people. And then band of reddish color across the middle of the face, and then a cooler tone underneath. And it depends though, because this can vary by ethnicity, obviously. For example, olive skinned people and many Asian skinned people, many Asian people will not have as much of a red tone. And some Asian people will have a much more even coloration tone from top to bottom. So it's always really good to have a photo reference if you're not sure. Plus, if you are trying to hit a really difficult to hit skin tone like Asian or olive, which can be very challenging if you're not used to it, you will want to have that reference. So it was funny. Oh, yeah. Yeah, dragging a tree up the stairs. I mean, our tree was heavy and David almost like tweaked his back moving it. I could not lift it. And of course, with my recent back issues, I certainly wasn't. But yeah. I hear you there. So, funny story. One of our favorite pieces of art in our house we got from a local artist's open studios. And her first name's Nina, and I can't remember what her last name is, but she's from not South of Africa, Nigeria, I think. I think she's Nigerian. And she was complaining to us because we were talking with her about her art and about how she uses a lot of non-conventional colors and still manages to make skin tones look African. And she's like, yeah, you know, I have no problem. Like a lot of my white friends, they have a real problem painting skin tones like mine, but I have no problem painting African. She's like, but you white people, the first time I tried to paint you, it was really funny. So apparently, whatever your skin tone is, if you're an artist, it tends to be a lot easier to copy, right? It makes sense. But she had a real problem, like, understanding how to paint lighter skin tones. So I think it's just that it's easier for us to like kind of get, like, because we look at it in the mirror every day or at our, at our friends, unless, we hang out in a very multicultural community. All right, so underside of the nose is going to be very cool and dark, and so I'm using that bluish thing. Hello, Ron. But yeah, so skin tones are challenging no matter who you are. So we want to de-emphasize this line. Like, you can see there's a little bit of a shadow there, and I'll bring in a little bit of this pinky color. A little bit of the blush to kind of define a little bit, but that's as much as I'm going to get. I am going to add the pink tone over here, but I think I'm going to end up glazing over it with shadow color. So I do want it here. Like it would be there. But it's going to be a lot more subtle over here. It's not going to show up as well because we're putting it over a shadow. But we still want it. We still want it there. Yes, James Gurney is awesome. I own all of his art books, actually. His other one, Imaginative Realism, is good too. But I find that I really like James's teaching style. He is sometimes a little advanced, unless you have an art background. But in general, he really has a nice, I love his way of teaching where he's pretty much got like one-page lessons with like, lots of examples. So yeah, it's a really good book. I recommend it regularly in my color theory classes. I'm glad you picked it up. In fact, I think I've got both of his books like right here. Let's see here. Got my Dreamscape stuff. Ah, they're down on the bottom with my Dinotopia. Here, let's give a plug to James Gurney. I swear I'm going to get that man to come to ReaperCon some year. The book that Ron is talking about is this one, folks, Color and Light. James Gurney, if you do not know, is the artist who created Dinotopia, but he's also an amazing just everything, and this is Imaginative Realism, which I think is some of the concepts are a little more advanced, but still there's some really cool stuff in here that is not in Color and Light. And they're meant to be a companion set. They are meant to go together. Hello, Chinner. Color and Light is the first one of the two. So technically you're reading them backwards, but it doesn't matter, Shadow Raven. I think you get a good grounding either way. He's just going to talk a lot more, kind of break down the granularity of like color and light temperature in color and light. And he's going to talk about color gamuts and stuff like that, which is very interesting stuff that you can apply directly to miniatures. All right, so let's highlight these eyelids just a little bit here. I'm going to work very organically in this in general. Now, as we've got one thing that is a problem, and you guys who are painting this without the hat won't run into the problem. So normally, as I mentioned, there are temperature zones on the face where you've got normally a lighter, more golden color up at the top, then you've got a band of reddish color across the center, and then you've got cooler tones down below. But because we have this hat, it's going to shadow that entire forehead. So I might be able to introduce a little bit of lighter color out here, but that's about it. So we're going to lose our golden band almost entirely. I do not do wet palette, Ron. I do well. I even use tube paints on a wet palette. And did, in fact, this weekend. I do not like wet palette because I like to have a lot of control over my paint consistency. I tend to work with very thin paint, as you can see, if you look at how much they've fallen off the side of the palette here. And I like to have my consistency where I need it. So I have used a wet palette in the past to paint, and we have Rock Troll up here. Let me grab him. So we painted Rock Troll entirely with the wet palette, just because, you know I have to prove every once in a while that I really can do it. I just don't enjoy it. But yeah, he was done, actually he's limited palette. We used 6 colors to paint everything on him, and the base. So Rock Troll is very cool, and I liked him enough to keep him around, so. But when I'm doing my own work to a high level, I far prefer the well. I usually recommend to new painters that they try both. Oh, there's the rain. We have some serious pouring rain. So if you guys hear a little bit of white noise in the background, you'll know what it is. But yeah, so for me, and I'm just kind of keeping a reference card here, things like that. For me, I really like thinner paint. I like to be able to build up layers, and I tend to work fairly slow, and I use a lot of transparent, like, overlaying tones and glazes, and so I like to be able to control the consistency. And I tend to recommend that new painters try both, because if you're trying to master paint consistency, like if you're trying to do textures, or you're trying to master a glaze, or anything like that, it's much easier if you can control the ratio of your paint to your water. If you're trying to organically learn it, unless you've got a real knack for it, which some people do, unless you have a real knack for it, it's very hard it's harder. It'll take you longer to organically learn something like that than if you just learn how to mix ratios and then get a feel for it. So like if you consistently can create a correct glaze by doing a 1-to-2 paint to water mixture for, like, say, a medium color, then you're going to get used to how that looks, how it feels, how it acts on your brush, and you're going to be able to replicate it, which makes it a lot easier to internalize it and understand. Then you can go to your wet palette and you can mix it the first time, every time, because you have an understanding of how it looks, how it feels, how it acts. I start dark with skin tones. So actually it's a reddish tone here. And then I put in a darker, cooler shadow, which we're mixing up here. This one has blue added to it, complementary. And then some red for the blush colors. We haven't done highlights at all yet, though. I tend to really enjoy working dark to light on skin. So we messed around this time. I use tan skin as a starting point on a lot of skin colors because it's very versatile. You can mix a lot of things into it. In this case, we decided to mix a very tan color, Griffin Golden Brown, into it, and that's what created our base, that. And then everything else is created by adding other hues to the base. So working out, which is actually kind of what a lot of classical tube painters will do. They'll just work it a bit more organically on their palette if they're using a traditional palette. But yeah, I don't like starting light for light skin tones. I find that it gets too chalky, too pasty, and you lose your darker, deeper colors. So I'll bring her skin up more than this, but right now we started fairly dark. And then I'm adding additional shadows and blush right now. So that's what we're kind of doing. It's why we mixed a bit of blue into our base with a little bit of umber to get this shadow color. So I'm going to block in more of that as well on this side of her face now and also under the jaw. No, that's what this stream is about, Ron, actually. This is Reaper Miniatures stream, but in the morning stream, this one that I do, it's all about just answering questions about paint and process and technique and all of the above. It's not just about me painting a mini. It would get pretty boring if it was. So actually, your questions are more than welcome. It's part of what we do. I know also that I'm an odd duck in today's painting world in that I do prefer the well palette. And a lot of pro painters much prefer the wet palette, but it's just not me. So, it's actually a limited edition bust that Reaper did for ReaperCon this year. So their convention, she actually has a pirate hat as well. And she has little, kind of her bandana, actually, she's got a little piece of that too. But she's one of our pirates, and so Jean sculpted this limited bust. I'm not sure if we're going to get more made. There's no word on it yet. I kind of hope we do, because it was really popular. And I think that for people who started out with, like, Reaper Miniatures, like, who are maybe feeling intimidated by busts, that she's a nice step up. She's sculpted very much like... kind of like a smaller miniature, like just the way her features and her proportions are. So, and the detailing is crisp. So it's a good starting bust for people. But yeah, right now we don't have any more for sale, so we'll see. Hopefully we can talk about it enough that Ed will get sick of people asking and he'll make it available. Make sure you bug Ed and Ron about it, guys. They're the people with the control. I'm gonna put just a little bit of light up here on top of her brow, because as mentioned, her hat overshadows a lot of her face, but I want a little bit. Ed, make more, yes. Yeah, I mean, I'm really hoping that the fact that it did sell out so quickly at ReaperCon means that they will. Let's mix a highlight, actually. I'm to the point where I want to start working with highlights. So when you're mixing a highlight for skin color, and this is whether you're working in acrylics or oils or traditional canvas or on miniatures, usually you are doing a combination of colors added to your base, whatever your base color is. So you're probably adding a little bit of yellow and you're adding white. And the type of yellow you use is really up to like the skin tone. For us here, we may add something more like polished leather, which doesn't look like a yellow, but in reality, it's a lot like a raw umber. So if I add that over here. So if I put that into the palette, and then, let me get my base over here so you guys can actually see colors a little bit better, and I throw some water into it, you can see that it is actually a yellow. It's a very dark yellow, but it's a very organic yellow, but it's definitely a yellow. And so this works. Like when I say add yellow to your skin tone, you don't have to add like sun yellow or whatever. You can add a yellow brown that works the same way. And what it will do is it will still give you the warmth you want in your highlight color, but you won't go way too yellow with it. So let's, actually I'm going to add a little bit more polished leather to that. I know how bold to assume that Ron actually checks his in. I don't think, Reaper is very tentative on busts. We really are a 28mm company, Ron. However, we did get a few busts made for our Kickstarter, our recent Bones 5 Kickstarter. So those will go into production, but they are not out yet. We keep trying to convince our CEO that busts are out there. People want busts and we need to do busts, which is why we got this one for ReaperCon. But he's still he still seems hot and cold on the subject. So we have to convince him. However, there are lots of amazing companies out there that do beautiful busts. You probably are already aware of some of them, but one of them is this. I always like to show some of the other stuff that I've got in progress to illustrate points. But that's from Ignis Art. There's Big Child. There's all sorts. There's a zillion wonderful European companies doing beautiful busts right now. So, all right. So I'm going to take my base skin color. Actually going to put a little bit of that coppery tone that we got in. And I am going to mix a little bit of this yellow into it. And then I'm going to put a little white in it. And you can choose pure white or not. I want to go pretty strong with this. So we'll see how far I can punch up this highlight. Oh, this is actually any bust is usually around 1/10 crows. This is about, maybe she's even technically a little bit, yeah, maybe even a little bit bigger, 1/8. Just looking at my other busts here that are actually 1/10, she's close to 1/10, but I feel like she's just a little bit bigger. Essentially, I'm just putting my yellow here. How you work is up to you, Ron. So like it's my work process is throwing different colors together, and then I'll often pick up one and mix in a little bit of the other organically on the top of my palette. Kind of like it is a wet palette, but it's not. But I mean, there is no right or wrong way. This is one thing with miniature painting and art in general. Never let anybody tell you there is one right way to do anything. There is certainly not. There is only the way that works for you, and that is the only way that should count. So, she was VIP swag. Polished leather is 9430. Yeah, when it comes out of the bottle, you don't see how yellow it is. So that's a lighter, warmer color. It's maybe a little bit too much. So I'm going to pop in a little bit more. And I could also glaze, I could tackle this different ways. That's nice. I like that color. And that's lighter than anything else. So we'll work with that. But yeah, I've been painting for, immense amounts of time. I've been serious. Let's just go for the serious painting. I've been seriously painting for about 20 years. And over that time, I've just, and it changes too, Ron. Like, I've changed my style. I've changed the way I do things. I've changed the way I mix colors. You evolve as an artist, and you're always you try something different and it works for you and you're all excited about it again. So for me, I'm going to load more water into this, guys, because we did put a big drop of pure white in here, and that means to get it transparent, we need to really load in the water. So I'm going to do a test. But yeah, there's some beautiful figures out there. So look all around. Definitely, like, a lot of these places have Instagrams or Facebook pages that a lot of people will put up. Let's try this and see how it goes. Yeah, that's perfect, actually. I'm not seeing brush strokes on that. Good. Or if I do see a little bit of brush stroke, it's not going to be too bad. So you always have this light area here on the face. It'll kind of come up right on the inside between the nose and the eye. And then, as I said, the upper part of the cheekbone here is going to be lighter. Like, I'm bringing it in. I got a little bit uneven on the eye here, so I'm going to go and bring in that lower lid a little bit. That and the lower lid should also be a little more red. If you look at your own eyes, you'll see that that's a thing. Yeah, Nomad Zeke's just throwing the names out there, but there are a lot of companies that are making beautiful busts now. Yeah, I would like to see Reaper also throwing its hat in a little more. I think I need to correct my eyeballs a little bit here. Let's get some walnut out. Walnut brown is the closest thing we've got to a warm black, so if you're looking for an ivory black equivalent, walnut is what you want. It is maybe, to be a true ivory black equivalent, I would probably need to add a little bit more black to it. It's just a tad brown, but it works the same way, and that's really what you're looking for. Hello, Green Oaks. Yeah, we're just starting. This is the start. And this is the thing with bus, guys. I'm not rushing this one. So get ready for a long haul, because I like bus. I like big bus, and I cannot lie. And we are going to be painting this for a while. Because who knows when I'm going to get another one. And this is your impromptu lesson in painting busts. I'm switching back and forth between my mixing base coat brush, and I'm mostly using my Da Vinci Maestro Series 10, size 1. My workhorse brush, as I like to call it. My brush I do almost everything with. I just really love the size of this brush. It is perfect for me. Yeah, there's a UK hub. Alrighty, so we were lightening, because you really want to lighten this whole area here. This is where the light's falling. So if we kind of turn her toward my big light up here, you can see that soft highlight coming down onto the top of that cheekbone. You can see that it also comes down over here, but not when we put the hat on. So when you do things like I'm doing here, where you have an overhanging object and you're taking it on and off, it helps to just kind of put this where it's going to be and tilt it toward the light, kind of see. So like here, interestingly enough, we can see a bit more highlight here. We are getting some light leakage from this side. So that means that we can highlight these areas that we see over here, but notice how much darker they are. And notice that we have a very dark shadow down the side of the nose here. And this is a transition shadow. This dark shadow you see, that's actually even darker than the rest of this. When you see a one light source meet another light source, so like your main light source and then you have, the other side of the face is reflecting light, you're going to see this dark shadow that comes right down the middle. Even where it doesn't really make sense that this is darker and this is lighter, but that's the way that light works. You have that kind of weird boundary shadow in between the lit area and the reflected light area. So that is a thing. And on something this big in scale, you're going to be depicting that. Yeah, but it's this specific shadow here. Because you've got light on this side, but you've got a shadow going down. James Gurney talks about it. So do a lot of other artists and portraiture artists as well. But essentially where one light source meets another, you get a shadow. But we remember now, we had a very dark shadow coming down all of this. We're going to block that in. So always be referring back to put your hat back on, look at it in the light, remember what you see. Because the whole side of the nose here is going to be darker. And how dark you make it is up to you. And it's really the lighting that you're trying to depict, right? So I do want to blend this in a little bit. And then this side of the lip was also very dark. So we're going to start bringing down even more dark shadows here. And there's probably going to be a very dark shadow here under the hat. We couldn't really see it, but I'm going to assume that it's there because it's right along this whole area. So bringing in that shadow. Core shadow, whatever the technical term is for it, but it's the boundary shadow between one part and the other part when you've got a main light and then a reflected light. You will see a boundary shadow. I've seen people use different terms for it. And I'm going to put in that dark right under the lip as well, because you're going to have that dark shadow right under that lower lip because it does project out. It's kind of almost like a keyhole shape, kind of almost a trapezoid down under the lip, but above the chin. There's always that shadow. If you're good, you add this in on 28 millimeters as well. If you add a slight shadow under the lower lip, it helps to define that area and make it look more realistic. I'm going to add this shadow to the underside of the jaw now, because I've got it, I'm working it. So see, there is see the demarcation now? Dark, 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 dark. You can see that subtle line, right? So yes, you actually put these things on miniatures. It is not just for canvas painters anymore, folks. I'm just going to block in more. I can always bring it back up. And I do want to do a little bit more on the side of this lip and the dark over here because it needs to be darker. Yeah, I would read Color and Light first. I would say that there's a lot of stuff in imaginative realism that applies more to canvas painters, Ron. But that said, there's also a lot of ideas you can apply to miniatures. But I think that Color and Light, I don't know what level you're at, is one of the things. If you're a brand new painter, then Color and Light's probably going to rock your world, and you may take a long time to internalize all of the concepts in it. Probably almost the best thing to do with it would be to paint different miniatures, kind of experiment with some of the concepts. But some of those concepts also will be about scale. Like, painting 28mm models is a lot different from painting busts like this, because you've got to kind of force highlights and shadows on the very small models. So some of the concepts that you discover in these books may not be as applicable to a 28mm. So keep that in mind. Scale makes a big difference in how you paint highlights and shadows. I'm just putting in a little bit more of a shadow here. Blending in some stuff. So put in that shadow, put a little bit of this over the top of it. May have to come back in a bit. I just want to have a blend. And I definitely want to darken down the corner of that mouth. Yeah, if you're looking, I don't know, and it depends on your goals, Ron. If you're going to paint a lot of 28mm, then just as Nomad Zeke just said, you might want to check out the Learn to Paint kits from Reaper. It's going to teach you stuff specific to 28s. Right, exactly, Jelly. And sometimes with 28s it's a little easier because you've got the basing at least to kind of tell you. But you also see a lot less realistic lighting on minis, so sometimes it doesn't do you much good. So with the bust, you have to really kind of imagine and suggest. I mean, I think that's why a lot of really good painters and a lot of the high scoring stuff on Putty and Paint, they're doing like vignettes. They're doing actually mini dioramas and stuff like that because it allows you to do that, right? And it involves the setting in the painting of the miniatures, and so whereas when you're doing a bust in, you know, kind of out in the middle of nowhere, it's hard to suggest. The best thing you can do with a bust in that case is just to be really consistent with your lighting and your light temperature on the and, you know, pay attention to all the stuff you normally would. You just aren't actually painting the background. But yeah, I agree with you. It's difficult. I am just trying to blend in some stuff again. Just mucking around. I can smooth things at any time. I want to recall. I still want that shadow to be in there, so but I'm just trying to blend in my darker shadow a little bit so it's not rough. It does, but it's also a bit trickier, right, Jelly? Because it depends on... It doesn't, like, straight up necessarily reflect. Because it's going to change the color of the surface. And the surface already has a color. So then you have to figure out how to do that. So I find that probably the most useful 2D quote-unquote books for miniature painters, especially bust painters, are going to be portraiture books. In a portrait, you often have a very neutral background, just like we have essentially a non-existent neutral background for our busts. And so the tricks that they do to, as far as temperature and temperature of shadows and color of shadows, those tricks work very, very well on busts. So, leaning toward 54, yeah, 1/10, I mean... 28mm can have a lot of detail. And it depends on, I mean, they're going to lack detail on the face because it's the scale, right? But as far as the sculpt goes, let me see, where's Lizette? There can be a lot of things you can do with 28s that are kind of fun. Thank you, Ron. It's not talent, it's tons of work. Maybe it's a little of both. I have a flair for color, but other than that, all of this I had to learn painstakingly over, like I said, 20 years of painting. Although I would say that, lest people get terrified by that number, most of my progress that I made as a painter, I made over the course of only 6 months. I find that that was the biggest leap for me, and it happened because I was painting every day and making an effort to improve on like one thing every day. So like today I'm going to work on faces. Today I'm going to work on capes, you know, and switching it up so you don't get bored. So I think really a few months of effort, if it's focused effort, because I was painting for eBay at the time, trying to sell models. And so becoming better got my prices to go up. So there was a direct incentive there. Alrighty, gonna grab this. Gonna continue accentuating the shadow under the jaw there, I think. Oh yeah. It's all practice though. You just get better. The more you do it, the better you get. Because, I mean, I was really bad at human faces when I was younger, like in art school, because I did go to art school, although I always tell people, and it's totally true, I learned a lot more about painting from miniatures than I ever learned in art school. So dark shadow, again, we've got that boundary shadow, right? That shadow we saw over here, we're also going to see over here, because there's going to be reflected light from her chest coming up at the underside here, but we're still going to see that line, that shadow, that thin band of shadow between the jawline and the rest of the neck. Right, exactly, friendly neutral, yeah. Well, it's like, what is it, 20 hours to being good at something, the TED Talk, you know. You can get pretty good at something if you put, like, 20 hours of focused effort in, or more. Obviously, you can get better depending. And it depends on what you're doing. Some things are more complex and take longer. But I would say that several months of focusing on becoming a better miniature painter, tackling the techniques that I saw other people using their work as examples and trying to copy what I saw, studying shading and highlighting more and getting better at those techniques. Like, and then, because if I showed you the stuff that I was doing back 20 years ago, like my first Golden Demon winner is very simple, and not at all, like, by the standards of today, he's quite simple. Yeah, Ron, that's kind of what Reaper bones are for, like the plastic ones. But you can also just get a box of Warhammer minis from one of your friends. They probably have some extras. But yeah, but the Reaper bones minis are really, they don't have as, the Bones USA have a really high level of detail. Hold on. So Reaper has a new line called Bones USA. It uses the same tech that like manga and like mecha kits do, so it's actually capable of a lot of detail. So this is Darius. We'll be painting him tomorrow, actually. And he's a 28, but he's got really nice crisp detail. Like even his little mouse has an expression, has a little frowny face. So there's some really nice detail on the Bones USA, but they're still relatively inexpensive. So I would say that look for like plastic models that are less expensive. Metal's going to be a lot more expensive. Resin is expensive generally. But yeah, I find that the bones models themselves, I prefer the bigger sculpts in the core bones, but Bones USA and Bones Black have a fair amount of detail. You don't always want a model with a lot of detail to start with, though, Ron. You want something fairly simple so you can just practice the basics. Yeah, actually, Ron, hey, Quindy, can you toss up the link to my YouTube? I just started a series on my YouTube, on my personal YouTube. It's just, there's one video so far, but it is on base coating and tricks to getting a smooth base coat. And there's more to it than you'd think. It's free. It's on my YouTube, my Painting Big YouTube. And it's like menu painting fundamentals. And I'll have another one about washes coming out later, like at the end of this month. So I'm going to do like one a month because I don't have a lot of extra time. I do a Patreon, I do this, I do a lot of stuff. But I'll be putting up like basic kind of technique videos and making it kind of just to kind of build a collection on my YouTube. But if you're just starting out, the base coating video hopefully will be useful to you, because just starting out, understanding like a good way to get a smooth base coat, like how much paint do you use, what kind of brush do you use, yada yada, can hopefully save you a little bit of work and effort. All right, I'm going to keep working on the highlights a little bit. Want to bring in the highlight here. Still want to have a shadow on the side of the nose because the light's still coming from above. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I mean, friendly neutral also has a good point. Don't make the paint too thick. I can talk about that. I always thin my paint before I apply it, even for base coating, just a little bit. But, all right, let me get in. I need to get back and get some of this stuff. I'd put a very thin coat over the top at first on this. And I feel like I want a little bit stronger of a paint on the chest now. Sure. Thanks, Ron. Yeah, no problem. You are exactly the person, like the type of person who I started that series for, because we get a lot of new people on the stream here. And, I love to take time to answer all the questions, but it's even easier if I can also say, hey, here are some things to remember, and then go watch this 7-minute video. So, yeah. Who knows? Eventually I may have a painting book, but right now, the YouTube fundamentals videos are the way I'm kind of tackling it. I also have a Patreon, patreon.com/paintingbig, and I do a lot of beginner and also more advanced stuff on there. A lot of stuff on like using MSP colors. So if you use Reaper's paint line, I created it. And so I do a lot of stuff on how to use the colors, what they go with, stuff like that. Ideas for using them in particular ways. Alrighty. So I want to kind of check my shadows here. I'm going to tilt her so that my big ring light is... I am definitely seeing a shadow there. I'm going to see a little bit of a shadow here in the hollow of the throat. Don't make that too dark, though. So if you kind of dab in a shadow there, make sure you make it a little more subtle here. It's the space, it's that little hollow right between your collarbones that is usually just a little bit darker than the collarbones themselves, which stick out and catch the light. And I'm not afraid to go back and forth a lot on this. As we slowly, you can see though, that slowly things are starting to come up and get a bit more polished of a look. Ron, it varies. Actually, I've got a guide for this. It's time for the, okay. So another free video for you. I did a class for ReaperCon. We did it online during the pandemic, like many cons did. I did a class called Thinning MSP Paint. If you go to the Reaper YouTube, I'm sure Quindy will have a link to it in just a second. Yeah, Quindy's awesome. Quindy is awesome with the links and with the everything. Many Bones USA models are one piece. But yeah, so the Thinning MSP Paints class is a class I did for ReaperCon during the pandemic, and it is free on YouTube forever on Reaper's YouTube. And I talk about there, Ron, I talk about all the different ratios for all the different techniques that you use standard in mini painting. There we go. She just popped the link right into there. So, oh, exclamation point Thinning MSP. Thank you, Quindy. Now we know what it is. Make a note, everybody. Yeah, it's like an hour-and-a-half class, but I cover like everything from base coats to washes to glazing to layering to all sorts of stuff. And there's also a free handout for it on my Patreon. So the patreon.com/paintingbig. It's a public post. Just a little cheat sheet. It covers the same. You could just get the same information by just watching the video and taking notes yourself. I just wanted to give something to make it even easier for people if they didn't want to take notes while they watched. But yeah, we try to give you a lot of tools. As a company, Reaper is very beginner friendly. We make an effort to give you guys a lot of tools that you need to have success, right? We try to set you up for success. You forgot you made a command. Thank you for the Prime sub, Rapster. Dang. 3 months. Thank you. And welcome. 3 months meaning you are relatively new to the channel, but hey. If I said welcome earlier, then you get a double welcome. We get enough new people. Sometimes I forget who I've welcomed and who I haven't, but I try to welcome everybody. So I'm going to just take this time to grab this walnut and kind of shade in. You can see where I did a zenith prime on this. So you can see the white primer over the black primer. But I do like to go in and kind of emphasize that and underpaint a little bit. So I'm going to darken some of my black primer here that is still showing through. Really make a hard shadow back here. Yes, there is also a Discord community on Reaper. Yes, and Reaper in general, the whole community is friendly and awesome. Like some people, the worst complaint that I've heard about the Reaper community is that sometimes people aren't hard enough on their critiques, but honestly, there are plenty of places to get more hardcore critiques, and if you ask people, they will be harder on you. But we generally default to a encouragement mindset and to tell you what you're doing right and to not rip apart your stuff unless you ask for it. So it's a very, very friendly community to learn the hobby in. And a lot of very good painters also in the community, so they will be able to help you troubleshoot. There we go. So essentially I'm blocking in a hard shadow there on that detail and that back in that corner because there's really not a lot of light reading, like getting back there. And so I don't need any of that detail to really come out. Like if you look at it, it's kind of buried, right? And especially when I put the hat on, that's just all in shadow back there. So I don't really need to worry about that. I might pick up a couple of little detail highlights down under there, just a tiny bit, if I feel it's necessary as I paint more. But for now, I want that shadow. And actually there's a shadow, you can see the black primer like really kind of stayed up here too. So I'm going to crisp that up a bit. So I will start with a zenith prime, which is spraying white primer down from above onto black primer to kind of simulate overhead lighting, so it helps you figure out where to put your highlights and shadows. But then I really like to tune it. I like to go back in with white and black, or in this case walnut and white, and make it a little more crisp. Oh no, yeah, there's a lot of bots will our bot does not like links. Oh, that's nice. Thanks, Quindy. Yeah, I put in my order so I could get the hair folk. She's cute. Yes, there are a lot of communities where, yeah, comments and critiques welcome means they're coming out pretty much just raking you over the coals, which is good for some people. If you're ready for that level of critique, then you're going to get a lot from that. Like, you know, David always tells me that I am way too easy on critiques, but I would much rather start out easier, and then as I build a relationship with the person and I understand exactly how hard they want me to be on them, then scale up the, you know, critique accordingly. But I also don't believe, even with my friends who are more advanced, I also don't believe in just giving them, like, just dumping a bunch of changes on them. Like, I'm more likely to pick, like, the one thing or the two top things that I would tune and then come back to it and see again. Yeah, we made a UK warehouse and then Brexit happened. Oh well, but we continue. So here I'm just like underpainting a little bit here. I'm using this shadow color that I created from our skin tone plus the blue to just paint over my little bit of my black primer. Because I think this is going to be white, and so this little collar thing is going to be an off-white, like a linen. It's got frills. So I'm thinking I don't need a super dark shadow on it. So this is how I work, like, on a bust, is I keep a lot of colors open at once, and I'll dodge back and forth, and I'll start tuning and adjusting and going back and forth. Good. And if you pick up one Master Series paint, Ron, pick up pure white. It's the best white on the planet. 9039. I kid you not, I am totally biased as I created it, but it is really, like, I regularly try other companies' paints, and nothing, if you're gonna do layering or work with thinned paint applications, nothing beats pure white. So now I'm gonna go, and I want a line around the skin tone here. I do this on 28, and the line probably won't remain after I get everything more to a finished point. I do less lining, less and less on busts, but sometimes I like to have that hard shadow there just to give me an idea of how the skin tone is actually going to shape up there. You can see the line that I'm putting around here. Also filling in some kind of recessed areas that I don't want to forget, that are probably just going to be shadow. But yes, welcome to the community, Ron, and I hope you enjoy your time in miniatures. And if you have any questions at any point, and I mean it, even if you're painting, like, you know, different companies' models, I don't care. Get on the stream here. We do this every weekday morning at about 3:30, or sorry, no, wrong. 11:30 USA Central Time, which I think is about, what, 6:30 you guys' time? I don't know if you're 7 hours different. But we're here for an hour and a half every morning, right up until 1 p.m. USA Central Time. So essentially my stream ends in about 10 minutes. But I'm always open to answer questions. Don't worry about it. So you feel like you can always come in here. We're the only days we don't stream are holidays. Or if I'm sick or something weird happens. But otherwise we are here all week. I tend to block in the medium skin tones, then I start blocking in my shadow tones, so like my browns and my cold grayish tones. Then I start working in the reds, like I started working in the reds on this side, and a bit on this side. I've lost them a little bit on this other side though, so I need to go back in. I like to lay down kind of a good medium dark base skin. Well, here, let me show you. We've been working with this portrait book on my other stream, so this is a portrait book that we're working with. What they do is, and this is very, very canvas painting, but it works, is they start with a master recipe, and you can see how dark that is. And then they've got kind of their shadows and their midtones and their highlights, and they mix all those tones using that master recipe. And that's what I'm doing here. So I start with kind of a medium dark, and then I work up from there. I find that if I start too light with my skin tone, Ron, even with a really light skin tone, I don't go as dark as I need to get the shadows right. So it's much easier for me to start medium dark and then push everything up. I can always bring it up. And it's a little bit harder to paint in good shadows if I've started with a much lighter color. It can be kind of hard for me to reverse engineer shadows from a lighter skin tone, because you need to make it like redder and darker, but you still want it pretty warm, so I don't know. I just like to start with the darker. So on this one, I started with this color, and then I applied the shadow, this strong shadow over the side of the face, which was based on the shadow the hat casts on her. And then I'm just bringing in, like, right now I like to kind of bring in my red tones. I like to bring in my red tones before I start really highlighting. Sometimes I have to re-add them. It's 5:30 UK time right now. Thanks, Korniko. Yeah, we have actually a lot of UK folks and European folks. And sometimes we even get Jazziana on here when she ought to be in bed. She's in Singapore. So we get a lot of people from all over watching this show. I'm bringing back my red tones here. I kind of lost them when I was trying to bring in that boundary shadow. So bringing the reds back in here. Bring in a little bit of red over here. And here I'm probably going to add in more shadows to, and that's a little bit too warm, so I'll have to cool it off. It will look less warm once it dries. But with the side of the face here, I am probably going to add shadows rather than adding highlights. Yeah. A lot of people come to it from gaming and then decide they prefer, like, they really just enjoy the painting aspect. And some people just come to it from an art background and always love the painting aspect. And maybe sometimes they get into gaming and sometimes not. But yeah, if you just want to learn to create really, like, awesome miniatures, then go for it. Nobody says you have to be a gamer to do this hobby. I'm going to get just a little bit of light here and bring it in. I just want just a little bit. That was reading too much like a stripe for me. There. A little bit lighter. That's better. Okay. So just like little, I just go through and just start adjusting. Like everything from this point up as I build the face, as I add highlights, as I accentuate red tones, as I if I get too warm, I knock them down cooler because that's like a little bit warm for a shadow. So let's glaze actually. Let's glaze with our kind of grayed out shadow. So we're going to use this crazy bluish brown that we've got. You can see the float of blue on the top because I thinned it a lot. That doesn't happen a lot with MSP, but it will happen sometimes with blue when it's mixed with other pigments because blue itself is really lightweight. And so if you've got a lot of water in there, if anything's going to float, it's going to be the blue. So glazes are colored water, and the thinner you make them, the less they will impact the surface. So for me, I'm just trying to cool down the warmth, the red tone here that I put in, which is looking just a little bit too hot for me to be in a shadow. So I'm going to pop in and I'm going to put a shadow. I'm probably going to cover the entire face. You can see how thin this is. Like look at how much of the palette you can see through it. Like it's almost not there. I'm going to have to go pretty fast. I'm going to have to go pretty. I might even use my huge brush. Oh. The problem with using a huge brush is you mop up all your fluid with like one brush full and then you're out. So, okay, we'll use this. I'm going to grab a lot of paint. We're going to start under the eye, wherever there's a good boundary, and we'll go down the face. So, boom, 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 boom. Going to go over that red spot. Hit the entire side of the face with a lot of paint. Then right away, we'll go back, we'll dry off, squeeze the water out of our brush, and then we'll come back and pull off any excess fluid. This is key with glazes. These are not washes. You do not want the paint to stay in a puddle. If you do, you will get terrible artifacts where your paint will dry like coffee stains and your smooth skin tone will be ruined and you'll have to paint over it to fix it. So we definitely want to grab any extra that we see while it's still wet, while it's still drying. The minute this starts to go and look like it's drying is the moment we stop playing with it, because if you touch it after that, you will strip up the paint. So glazes take some practice to confidently execute, but they're really not that hard. I think we're good. You can still see that it's wet, right? So here's where I'm going to look and see and make sure I've got a nice smooth coat and that I don't see any puddles. There's a puddle at the corner of the eye I almost missed. There. And that's going to darken down and cool down that shadow so it's not as warm. Usually I don't actually run. If I'm shipping the model, like if it's a commission or if it's a model up for sale, like I have on my Patreon right now, then I will. I usually use a brush-on sealer. I like those a little better than spray because dull coat doesn't exist anymore. Tester's dull coat used to be kind of the go-to, but I don't like the finish that a lot of sealers put on the model. I want this finish to be as close to the actual paint as it can be. So I tend to use like Reaper's brush on sealer and thin it. But Master Series paint has a very high adhesion. It sticks to the model very well in general. So I stopped sealing my models a long time ago. Yeah, I like some of the historical figures. I don't do military stuff, Ron, but I like ancients. Like, I like Vikings. Vikings and Egyptians. You get a lot of freedom with those because you can use, like, ancient dye stuff. Oh, I forgot to tell you guys that. There was an ancient dye thing that I finally found a picture of. I have to show you. Because this is that, you know, the purple, the royal purple that was made from snail shells back in the day? One second. Let me find it. There's an article on National Geographic where they were excavating in, I think, like around where like the Kingdom of David and King Solomon and all that. And they actually found, because it's so dry there and it preserves everything, they found tiny little microfibers. That is what royal purple looks like, guys. It's actually a reddish purple. That surprised me. I thought it was a bluish purple, but that is like actually they've enhanced it to color to get the color back. And this is like blown up way, way high. But is it amazing that stuff that's like, gosh, what, 200 BC? Like that stuff that's that old and you can still find the microfibers and still find the dye. Isn't that cool? Sorry, that's Smithsonian, not National Geographic. I got it wrong. They were talking about stuff they found the big copper mines out there. And that was some of the fibers. Like they were trying to figure out like, you know, the class of people, you know, who had worked there and where they were likely from and stuff. And they were finding some pretty amazing stuff. But yeah, so that is royal purple, like a reddish purple. So let's see what's close in MSP. Nope. Necromancer purple's not blue enough. Nope, too red. Hold on, we'll get there, I swear. Honestly, Runic Purple's close, but it's got a lot of white in it, so I would probably say Runic Purple maybe shaded with... No, that's too blue. So much stuff. I'm gonna say Runic Purple shaded with, like, maybe Monarch 9239, or with a little bit of Monarch in it. Would be the closest thing to actual royal purple from the ancient days. Ron, essentially, it's like, how do I know the mini is finished? If I've executed it to the best of my ability and I feel that it is good enough, I will be done. And often it'll also be, can I learn anything else by pushing this? Like, I'll ask myself kind of, you know, if I did half-ass anything, right? And if I did half-ass something, is it still good enough? Like, does it look good enough for me? Did I learn enough? Am I satisfied? It doesn't have to be perfect. I was a perfectionist and I'm slowly trying to recover from it. But if you're satisfied with the progress you made on that mini, put it down. Because remember, you can only learn so much from a miniature. And you're going to get a lot better if you paint more and different miniatures. So at the start of your career, don't worry too much about anything. Finish it to the best of your ability in that moment. And then say, you know, that cape's okay, but I wish I'd done better. I'm going to try to learn and get better on my next cape. So that's the mindset that will keep you growing and keep you progressing and keep you from getting frustrated. Because when you keep throwing yourself at one problem or one model, it's very easy to lose your love of the project and get frustrated. And that's the one thing you never want. Your hobby should not make you frustrated. It should make you happy to sit down and paint. That's my personal opinion. I mean, you can, there's a lot of danger in saying your minis are never finished. It's a relief to me to say, okay, I'm done with this one. And maybe that's the key. Maybe just say, I'm done with this one. That's the most I can get out of it. I want to move on to something new. I mean, finish it for sure. You should have paint on everything. You should have highlights and shadows. But then, you know, move on to the next thing. And probably the best thing to do, and I know that Rubigon has brought this up, before. But the best thing to do, like Ron, if you paint a mini that you really like and you wish you could do better on it, instead of keeping on and pushing yourself on that model now, get another one, and a year from now, paint that. Paint it again. And then you've got your original and you've got your new one. And the great thing about this is that even if it's 6 months, if you paint a lot, you're going to see that you've improved so much on that same model. So that's a trick that you can really encourage yourself with. And it's also a trick to get yourself to put that model down, much as you like it, much as you wish that you could do a little better on it. It's just better to move on, paint more, and then go back, get another copy of it. This is why the cheap models like Bones are really good. Or if you, like I said, if you get a box of like Plastic Tau or Space Marines or Orcs from a GW friend who's got extra models they don't care about, often you can pick those up real cheap. And then those are great practice pieces. Paint one, say, ooh, yeah, I need to work on skin. Go paint some other stuff. Come back, paint another one of that model, and then you do better. And I think that's, yeah, I mean, you got to get to good enough. You got to get to, okay, I'm pretty happy. Like, if I can get a model to the point where I can show it to my significant other and be, you know, like happy with it, like, yeah, it's good, it's done, you know, then I'm done. It's different though. You go into some projects with a much higher goal, right? If you decide to compete in a competition, then you're really going to push it. But that's a whole different like mindset of painting if you're going to be doing competition. Oh, one more thing for you, Ron. Reaper Challenge League, RCL. Reaper does like little sets of painting challenges every month, every quarter, every, you know, year. Rubigon used it a lot to get better. But it's a fun thing. It's a fun challenge. And there's a lot of talk, you know, on Discord about it. People talk about their projects that they're working on for it. Sometimes Reaper will suggest colors or a particular model. But it's a way to get yourself moving and also to give yourself a deadline. So it's like, I've got to have this done by the end of the month. And it can really help you if you have problems finishing minis. And also it's just fun and the community is fun. So there, that's my last plug. And now guys, we made it through a whole stream. This chair actually kept my back from screaming. Yeah, I mean, Rubigon did the Reaper Challenge League, and he went from 3 minis to 30, so. All right. But yes, so yeah, my back, hallelujah. We managed to make it through a whole stream. And now I need to go to the grocery store. Oh, noes. Oh, and it's dreary again. Oh, well. We'll just deal with it. So what we did today, we actually we started out with just really a base and a shadow, and she has a lot more dimension on her face now. We've added shadows to this side. Notice, by the way, guys, we've got definitely the shadow is different, but still recognizably the same color as far as that blush color from one side to the other. I may cool it down one more level. We'll see. It shows a little warmer on camera than it does in person. But we also added in some highlights. We did some underpainting down here. We tightened up things. We lined. She's looking pretty good. Oh, yeah. And... yep, no, Zed. Just go watch the VOD. Yes, sure. We hope to see you again, Ron. Beyond the Kit with Rhonda is on at 2 p.m. Central USA time. Remember, go and give Rhonda love. Tomorrow morning, Ron. Tomorrow evening for you. I always have so much trouble. It's 9:30 here. It's 11:30 USA Central. So maybe it's 5:30? I think Reniko said 5:30 in UK time. So 5:30 p.m. since you guys are later. But yeah, so I'm on every weekday morning around this time or previous to this time. So you can find me. All right. Have a good one, everybody. Remember to go and watch Rhonda. She needs your love too. 5:30, Reniko says. So 5:30 p.m. log on to this channel and I'll be on shortly. All right. See you. Everybody have a great day. And thank you, Quindy, for all your help.